Hello, hello, and welcome. You don't want to really hear from me, so we're going to get into this panel. We're here about philanthropy and technology and how to really further impact. So I would love it if each of you can introduce yourselves, your organization, talk about the work that you do, and your biggest challenge that technology can solve for you. I know, loaded questions. Welcome. Now go.
I was like, when I saw where my name was, I was like, golly, I'm gonna have to go first. I'm like, God, All right, so all jokes aside, I'm Kevin Dow. I lead the regional foundation. I'm its executive director. It's a philanthropic organization that does community economic development, neighborhood revitalization in communities throughout New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the eastern half of Pennsylvania, and Delaware. We focus on neighborhood planning, funding typically community development corporations, CDCs, but not limited to that. And we have a portfolio of program-related investments, which is kind of loan programs that we're now doing for loan pools, as well as real estate projects. My background a little bit is I've been in philanthropy in this role for 3 years. I was on the board of this organization for about 6 years prior to being executive director. I was in corporate philanthropy for a moment. I spent much of my career in commercial lending for a financial institution, kind of doing sales. That was the for-profit gig that made me a little bit of money, not enough, because this ain't my money. This is not my money.
Thank you.
The biggest challenge, I thought about that and I wrote some things down and I was wondering, we talked a little bit, maybe this is good that I'm going first because I get to get this one out, I'm avoiding the question a little bit, but the challenge that we've talked a little bit about is getting out of the way. So philanthropists ourselves, we need to get out of the way. And what I mean by that is that I think in the last session, if you were there, was talk about how we don't coordinate well in Philadelphia. We don't solve big problems together in Philadelphia. And I think with solving the problems of social problems, economic development problems, the healthcare problems, whatever your cause or your issue is, there are philanthropists that are driving that and much. And we don't use AI. We don't use technology. We don't allow it to influence decisions enough. We don't allow it to do the research that we might be able to scale up enough and have trust. And I think that in and of itself, that dynamic, if we could get them out of the way, then AI could be the technology
Don't be
that we
jumping
do.
ahead.
All right, I'm sorry.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here in a very relaxed, inviting setting. So
I'm not sure if that was really
no, it's awesome. Like I love to have a Friday like this all the time because I work at a bank, and so. Yeah, so I'm Shelley Silva, and my current role is I'm head of business development for PA New Jersey metro region, and we connect how we show up for our community partners with our business. And so we have a $20 billion community impact plan, which my team is responsible for implementing throughout the Pennsylvania, New Jersey market. Prior to that, at the bank, I was head of corporate citizenship, and so I led all of our philanthropy, our colleague engagement, and our ESG strategies. And before getting to the bank, I was chief operating officer at the Philadelphia Housing Authority. I'm a lawyer by training, so I worked at a law firm and was a law clerk. And I am simply amazed at where technology is. Like, I'm old enough to have used books in a library. I'm old enough where there was not a computer at my desk. I used a word processor that was really cool. It was called a Brother word processor. Did you? And so every day there's something that just amazes me with how far technology has come. But in my everyday work, I still feel like there's so much more to go in terms of social impact. And when I think about one problem that technology, I believe, will solve eventually, is really showing for funders, and for me, my employer, the value of our investments in an easy, real, data-driven way. as we all know, systems are everywhere. How people measure impact is very different from organization to organization. And so for me, a constant battle I have in my space is, you gave $1 million. How does that impact the ROI to the bank? How many new customers did we get as a result of that investment in the community? And I'm not saying that's the only thing that organizations want to know, but how do we get more money for the organizations that we care about, that we know are changing the world, that are impacting our communities? So it keeps me up at night because it's often a question that's given to the team and to me on a daily basis. Show me your ROI. Show me how it changed, how we're doing and how we're thinking about investing in the communities in which we serve.
Well, good afternoon. This is a nice way to start your Friday or start your weekend, I would agree. I'm also happy to be here. My name is Chekemma Fulmore-Townsend, and I am the president of the Hamilton Family Charitable Trust and Hamilton Family Foundation. Those are two separate entities, but they both do the same thing, which is provide resources to communities. And we support young people learning in 4 areas, so academic learning, career learning, social emotional learning, and occasionally we do give grants that provide education support, which is to remove barriers so that young people can learn with dignity. I've only been in this role for 2 years. And truth be told, I just said this last night, but I took the job because I had big beef with Philanthropy, so I was really trying to figure out what y'all doing over here and why is it not working the way that I think it should work after working in the nonprofit space for nearly 30 years. My recent job before this one was to run a very large nonprofit called the Philadelphia Youth Network, and I did that. I was there for 17 years, leading it for 9. And there was just a huge disconnect for me in terms of what is happening when you give money and then what is needed. And there's a lot of translation that needs to happen. And so I recognized very quickly that there were a lot of things I understood, but there was also a lot of things I did not understand. And so I wanted to see the problem from a different vantage point and see if I could make a difference. So that's why I took the job. I would say for technology, one of the biggest challenges that I have is that we fund in multiple geographic locations. So I'm in Philadelphia, and I got to understand what's happening here in Philadelphia for young people in K-12 education space, also workforce space. But I also have to understand that in Newport, Rhode Island, which is a completely different community, and despite what you think, Newport is not only the Mansion people. It's a tale of 2 Newports. There's a significantly poor population that lives there. Those are the people who work in the hotels and all the things. And so they have some very unique challenges, and it's an island. And then also Palm Beach County, Florida, which has its own set of things. So I hope that technology can help me integrate context consistently, so that when there is comparative, because I'm always telling one story, right? I have 196 grantees. Not one of them care that they are the Newport grantee or the Philadelphia grantee. They expect the same things from me. But the context in which we're making decisions is uniquely different. And I think that has to be accounted for. And it's not something that can be automated. But I do think that technology can help us see where there's connection and where there's opportunities for advancement.
Thank you. And I do want to point out that I love the Dewey Decimal System. I do love it, and I miss it. I actually found a school, I think Friends Select, that's on Parkway. They still use a Dewey Decimal System in a library, and I wanted my daughter to go there just so that she could experience that, but she didn't want to go there. I was upset. So
People are like, what's Dewey Decimal? That's like the great.
oh, right. I'm so sorry. It is how you find the books in the library. It is the numerical system to find the books from the card catalog. We're not going to get into that. That's not why we're here. That is not. I am older than I look, people. I am older than I look. Okay. Yes. So, thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling really old and hot right now. So I want to talk about, so each of you, at least Chekemma and Kevin, have expressed that you were on the nonprofit side and then you went into philanthropy. How has technology evolved? Like Shelley mentioned it, right? I'm talking about it now. Like it has evolved significantly from a grantee perspective to a funder perspective. How has it actually evolved and where do you think it's going?
I think about this often sometimes early in my career, do people remember they used to have to mail their grants in or drop them off?
You still do that with some organizations, and that frustrates
They need to
me.
get better because that's still actually crazy, right? So that's like a big, when I'm receiving all my grant applications and they come to me and it's like 80 of them in a day, and I'm like, wow, people used to actually come to our office and bring this paper here, and not just one copy, but like 3 or 4 or 5 copies, because you got to give it out to the evaluators and things. So you don't have to do any of that anymore, right? Now there's an interface. People can see the information. Your evaluators can log in and, evaluate the answers. And I think that is just really instructive because it is a sign of a shift, like a major shift. We just don't operate the same way because we don't need to, right? And I think what philanthropy can learn from technology is like also we could give differently too, right? Like if we could change the way we receive the information, we probably could change the way we make the decisions as well. And so thinking about how to use technology to facilitate faster decisions. I think the other thing that has been really interesting for us, and I come from the Family Foundation, which I think is a different breed of part of philanthropy, definitely was lower tech before I got there. And I was like, oh, this is a lot of paper. Why are we doing this? We don't need to do this. Why do y'all have a copy of everything? Like, it's actually in the system. We don't need to do that. So they're a lower tech family, lower tech operation. And what technology has done for us is speed up some of the rote tasks so that you don't, I was thinking about this the other day. Anybody remember, like, I don't know, y'all might be too young for this, but like when Word and mail merge was a big thing, but you could never go right? Like you never could get your mail, okay, somebody said yes. All right, so you could never get your mail merge right? Like you was doing it 50,000 times, you done printed all the letters, you got to print them all again because something is off, right, the mail merge. And I was thinking about this because we work with a system that has communication aspects, and I was trying to get my team to understand how to design this letter. So I'm like, why do y'all have all these custom things in here? Do you see this on the side? This is merge fields. And they didn't understand what these pieces meant. And I had to break it back to that example. Remember in Word you had to do a mail merge, and they're like, oh yeah, we have to have a table and this. That's what this is, except it's super easy because all you gotta do is copy, paste, and now it will work seamlessly. So even like our understanding of processes, I see technology like influencing communication. I see it influencing our operations on the philanthropy side. And it's exciting, so it makes me want more of it, right? Like, let's do more of that so we can do this, so we can get the money to the people who need it faster. That's ultimately my goal.
Yeah, and part of my career was at the United Way, and that United Way's model was built on employee giving, going into large corporations and handling their employee giving and getting them to donate and so forth. And in my career there, I saw a huge transformation in that model, and that model is now outdated, where technology came along, and in the large companies created platforms for companies to go direct, right? So United Way was this intermediary, and in a very short period of time, I mean, literally within like a 5-year period of time, the model was switched to that the employer could create a giving platform for its employees that was branded by the employer. So no longer did it say United Way campaign, it said the Comcast campaign or the Vanguard campaign, right? And what that did then was gave power to their employees, right? It also shifted the company's mechanism for capturing information directly. Not only did it capture the financial information that employees did, it also captured and then allowed for their employees to do volunteerism and what we like to say human capital and intellectual capital, and how they were able to gather that. So the Googles of the world, for lack of a better company to name right now, created this platform that really transformed, disrupted that industry. I see that also, if you could translate that to like the giving portals that are out there right now, it's almost built or created an equity in the system so that anybody, wealthy or not, can have a fundraising campaign, right? That didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years for sure, right? And so now anyone could go on there and say, hey, I have a cause. I had this, maybe a horrific situation, or I have this opportunity to support this community in this way, plant some trees, whatever it may be. And you can create your own fundraising platform. And that in and of itself was all about technology and ability for us to be able to do that in a way in which it could reach mass scale. And then therefore there's some profitability on the other side for some companies, but that's what technology did for philanthropy.
And that was a great example, the United Way, because I can remember when I did take over the first job that I did in this space, it was to move the employees to that kind of system. And it also, at the end of the day, United Way or whoever ran your system took an administrative fee, which they should, right? Because they were using employee time. And then our employees weren't actually able to give all of the money that they wanted to give to the organizations that they believed in. So it actually really empowered our employees because you could give to anything that was a 501c3 that was personal to you, right? And the way we talk about it at TD Bank is that we want to support our employees in the communities in which they live, whether it's Rhode Island or Philadelphia, in a way that's meaningful to them. And for people to get up close to philanthropy has made all the difference in our colleague engagement. But I do remember, obviously PHA was not a nonprofit, quasi-governmental, but I remember when we got proposal bids in, because I was a contracting, I had like so many jobs, y'all. Like, it's crazy when I start thinking about my resume. And I remember those big binders of information. But you just think how expensive that was and how many organizations didn't have actual access to participate in these processes because they couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Like I said, there are some organizations that still do that. Not just this year, I applied for a contract with a government. I feel like it might have been in Rhode Island, and it had to be in a binder. I had to mail it. I had to be postmarked. I'm like, come on, guys. It is 2025 just about. Let's get there. You brought up AI earlier, and I'm going to combine the next two questions because AI is playing a significant role in the world. So when it comes to grant making, when it comes to nonprofits using AI to write grants, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you think, or how do you think AI is really going to impact this process of grant making?
We talked about this a little bit. Listen, I say if you know how to use it efficiently, do that, but make sure it's an accurate reflection of what you're doing and who you are. So, I think it will get you in the door, it won't keep you in the door, right? And it's not like who you know might get you there, but what you know will keep you there. And it's still, I think, depending on what kind of process you have. We have a process where we're going to find out eventually, right? Like if you misrepresented yourself, we're going to find out that eventually. Through whether it's reporting or site visits, or sometimes you have pre-grant interviews and assessments, because it's still a very relational process. So I don't think that the AI will take that over. But I do think if it gains efficiency, right? One thing I think about often is nonprofits have to, I'd say, fold themselves into as many different orientations to meet the needs. So I always tell my grantees, I can tell you everything about being successful at the Hamilton Family Charitable Trust, and it's going to work for the Hamilton Family Charitable Trust, but when you go to the regional foundation, what you're doing over here may not work over here, might actually piss them off. So don't, when I've told you what to do here, I've only told you what to do for here. It's a very individualized process, and I think if you can figure out how to use AI to give you the intel to be personalized and intimate and clear that you're connected with that mission, then go for it, right? Go for it, make it work for you. But recognize that I think that's the trade-off, right? It's AI, it's now everybody's using it, so now I might have 3 proposals that say the same thing, and now you're not as unique and special. Your identity, what you do is not standing out in the same way. And that's the fear that I have, is okay, well, everybody uses the same chat bot. Look at this. This language is crystal clear, and now everybody has this language. It will send off red flags, right? And more red flags about your integrity than anything else, right? And that is probably the fastest way to a no, right? If people don't trust you, they're definitely not giving you their money. And so that is something to think about as well.
So I did ask the executive director of our foundation, She said, have at it, right? Like, if they want to use it. But I think the key that you just said is that philanthropy is still so personal. It's like you got to touch, I mean, at a certain level, right? And she and I were chatting about it, like, okay, you write a check for $2,500. You're like, I mean, at least at our level. But if you're going to write a check for $1 million, there's so much like that, like gets you in the door. It may get you at the table, but there's so much up close and personal conversations and digging and data and conversation and seeing your leadership team. But it's a tool. And if it's available to everyone, then that's something that we care about, right? Access.
Yeah, when we had a pre-conversation, I was like, go for it. Like, we get thousands and thousands of applications, and so there's somebody on the other side writing thousands and thousands of applications, right? And so if that can help out the system, then let's make it happen, right? I think the trick and what we're alluding to is that, in the way I would describe it, is that there's an emotional side to philanthropy, and then there's the intellectual side, right? So giving money out, deciding where to give, is an emotional decision. You decide to give your resources that you've worked your ass off for because of something that hit you in a sense of your emotion, your feelings, right? And all of a sudden you say, I'm going to do something about that. That's when you kick in the intellectual side of the brain and say, how do I do it? Where do I do it? How long do I do it for? Where do I do it? It's the same thing for us up here, right? And so where I think AI comes into play is in that intellectual side. And that's what folks who want to enter into philanthropy or get access to philanthropy is that in that relational, I know Mike O'Brien might be around the human side of things, right? There's that conversation that has to take place, that relationship that has to take place, that emotional connection. And then AI should come in and helping us with the intellectual decisions. How do we gather information? I would say, we should, philanthropy, be able to have, this is dreaming now, for sure, where we have, maybe a central location of information of all these nonprofits that all come to us in one shape, fashion, or another, that we can kind of like scale that information for us, so we can just go to one place and they can go to one place, right? And then we can draw that information. The other dynamic that I think AI is going to help us with even more is distilling that information, evaluating that information. We do a simple test on financial kind of steadiness, lack of a better way to describe it. And we might say we're going to look at the financial information. We're going to look at the current ratio, kind of like current assets to current liabilities. We're going to say if you less than one, you got a problem. If you more than one, you're good, right? Yeah, exactly. AI should be able to do that for us, right? I should be able to plug those numbers in. And theoretically, tax returns are public information. I should have an AI system that goes to the public system, the IRS, pulls that information out, and then kicks it back to me. It's not yet there, but it's close. It's coming. That is coming. And so I think that's how we'll be able to leverage AI in a sense, and how we will be able to shift philanthropy in a way that will be effective for us and effective for our grantee partners, our partners that have to do this work.
Shameless plug, I'm working on it, but moving on.
No, that's right. I know that's right.
So there's a platform that I found out about called Givesy, and they have this new bot. It's like business development. It's a numbers game, right? So it's more on the individual side. Like you're trying to understand wealth management or net worth and reaching out to people and reaching out to funders, understand who's doing what. So this bot will actually do all of that, right? It will send out emails. It will identify the people, all those things. When I think about that, I know we said it was a personal, emotional issue, but is there an ethical issue that can arise, not only just with Givesy, but just with the use of AI when it comes to philanthropy and the fact that, again, one, these are public dollars. It's not your money, someone said that, right? And then the other example that I want to talk about is there's a local university, I won't put them on a spot, but they use AI in their HR processes. And I have departments say, hey, I have this opening. If you know anybody, email me directly, because actual candidates that are qualified do not make it through the AI system and the HR system. So when you're thinking about creating that rubric, right, how far do we go? Where do we pull back? What is needed to make sure that we are ethically and responsibly using it and getting the dollars where they need to be? Sorry for the hard question.
I don't think AI precludes the actual work, right? So for me, I'll say in the decision-making process, right? I still have a responsibility to validate the information that's given to me. If I'm going to recommend a grant to somebody, it's because I've done my homework and I'm clear about this recommendation. So while AI probably can outreach to you, can give you information, can collect a bunch of information, does not preclude the fact that I have to be confident in what I'm sharing with the board who's making a decision to support my recommendation or not, right? And so I do think that there is the sort of like dangerous thing that's happening sometimes in these conversations where it's like, it's just going to be automatic. Does not change the human thinking part of your job, right? And there's going to be, to me, what it's going to do is maybe collect the information faster, take out the steps. Now, I don't have to download it and put it in Excel to compare it because it's coming out compared. Or it's going to give me a formatted version that's easy to comprehend, like we talked about the financial rubric. And I'm like, we have one. And what's interesting is that our system connects directly to Candid, so we can see all this information. And what we've started to do is pull the data from Candid. I think adoption is also an interesting thing, too, because I'm like, oh, we're going to see how many people really got their stuff updated, or are we really talking about 2021 because you didn't put the most recent information. So I think there's some people work that has to be done in order for some of this integration to happen. But I think the ethical dilemma is it does not preclude you from being accountable.
Yeah.
Right?
I would.
For me.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. And I think in the last session I was there for the tail bit of that, and Suleiman, who was there, he said there's artificial intelligence, AI, and HI, artificial intelligence and human intelligence. Both are going to exist forever, right? And so how do you work with the both to determine? So like Chekemma was saying, we can economize or efficient, make it more efficient about downloading and gathering of information. But at some point in time, some human eyes got to look at this and make a gut call, right? And that's where I think you deal with the ethical nature. Now, I'm gonna say something to you about your HR friend, right? Because
Wasn't my HR friend. She was just beefing with HR because she wasn't getting qualified candidates.
okay, all right. So I apologize for making her your friend, because
HR is not my friend.
HR. That's where humans
Right.
need to change systems. So if we
That's
know
why I want to put them on blast.
the
I said their name.
system, right, is doing that, I think it's unethical for your HR colleague, not friend, person that's back there.
It's not HR.
Or
It's her
it's HR. I'm
department.
sorry.
She
It's
was
somebody
beefing
else.
with HR.
Somebody. It's HR the problem though, right?
HR's the problem.
That's
HR's the problem.
HR needs to say, well, shit, that's not, black folk not getting through.
Or qualified.
Or
Qualified
qualified
folks not
folks,
getting
excuse
through.
me. Thank
We
you.
have a common problem here. Qualified folks.
Qualified folks not getting through.
But I think
Isn't it ethical for them to say, hey, we need to fix it? This system is not functioning.
But I think it starts before the system is built, right? That is the issue, right? Because the system does what it, and so now I can give an advertisement for my other job.
Other job.
But like we all remember when they started the automatic water sensors, right? And it didn't recognize dark skin. We were not in the test group. So that was like, it's too late once it's built. And so real technologists now know you have to have a diverse set of people, experiences, helping to build systems. So I was reached out to about 8 months ago by a group of guys from Silicon Valley, and I was like, you want me to help you build what? And it's all about building a social impact platform to measure impact for organizations. And they literally pick my brain about every single thing that I did in that job and I do in this job today. They have round tables with impact philanthropists, people that do impact and philanthropy across the US as they're thinking about how they're building it. And it's not just, well, tell me what keeps you up at night. It's like literally show me how you would do this. Tell me some of the key triggers that would make you feel differently about grantee A versus grantee B. What do you mean about diversity in their organization or on their board? If we are not in the beginning of the process, and I mean all of our experiences, all of our lived and other, then it's never going to work. And that's why those HR systems suck.
So we had maybe 1 minute left, but typically people attend the philanthropy session because they want to learn how to get money. So in the last session, they talked about, I'm being honest. In the last session, there was a conversation about workforce development, youth organizations, how they're doing these trainings for maybe lower level entry jobs. AI might be coming for those jobs. Maybe we need to be training for that. As funders, how are you looking at the role of AI in the work that you're funding? Not like using it, but supporting the development of it, the usage of it, and training of the youth in the communities that you are actually supporting. How can people in the audience that are doing that come to you, talk about it, to help you understand it? All the above. That was a curveball. We didn't plan it, so they're going to need a minute.
I'll go just because you're going to send an email and it won't come to me, but I can give you somebody's name. So at TD, we have 4 pillars that we focus on, and one is financial security, and it's really about workforce of the future, right? And how can you prepare people for the jobs that are coming down the pike? And so we really want to invest in organizations that are embedded in their communities, working on the ground, that are looking forward into what's coming down the pike. I mean, we think about green jobs. That's something for us that we've invested a tremendous amount of money. We know the government had $1 billion supporting it. How are universities and non-traditional educational spaces bringing youth along so that they can prepare for financial security? We know you can't, traditional education does not work for everyone, and so we actually want to be close up with organizations that are thinking about the future of work a little bit differently.
So for us, we are funding learning. And I think, I keep saying that because I think that's a very important distinction. What we are looking at is what are the skills that young people are gaining as a result of the experience. So I'm sort of thinking about how are you teaching them to navigate the economy of the future because they have strong critical thinking skills, because they've been exposed to an array of potential future careers. How much connection are we having between humanities type jobs and teaching and STEM? Where's the variety? I look for variety in my portfolio, especially with our career learning space. And I think it's also deciding which problem you're trying to solve. So sometimes somebody's bringing me an opportunity to invest in a training program because they're trying to solve a right now talent problem. And other times, people are bringing me, opportunities for workforce exposure because they're trying to solve a ready for the future problem. And I think there's different solutions for those things and different reasons why I would recommend a grant that does that kind of work. And so it really is, for me, I start out with what's the skills? Are these how are these skills going to be helpful to this person? And is this a right now helpful, or is this a 4 years from now, 6 years from now? Because we are in the K-12 space. So I look for the connections and the type of problem this is designed to solve, or the type of asset it's designed to build.
Well, I'm going to stop asking questions, and I'm going to allow you to ask questions. Oh, okay. Yep, let's go. I'll give you my mic.
Hello. Thank you. This has been great. There was a couple of things. One, technology, like the Dewey Decimal System is a technology, right?
Right.
So to keep aware of that there are multiple kinds of technologies, and each of them are different technologies within our toolbox, which goes on to the part where we were talking about AI and the systems and building the systems in the Silicon Valley that had come to you, Shelley, to do all that deep work. Some of the problem with that we are not seeing more of that, is that although OpenAI is open, the work that's being done to build on top of that is really proprietary, which means that it's not being shared. And that's an area that philanthropy could help with, so that we can be part of making that information available to everyone. For example, it does exist that checking for the tax returns. And when I met someone who was using it and I started asking a lot of questions, I started to realize how proprietary it was. They started really backing off, talking to me about how they do that. And so it means that each person has to build it themselves if we're not sharing this information. And then finally, in the last session, one of the things they said AI, and then the other AI is ancestral intelligence. And that's also to remember in our toolbox, right? There's these new technologies, but not to lose all of that other technology that's there or get blinded by the new technology to not remember how important some of these other ways of solving systems that we can bring back in to society.
I have a quick anecdotal. I was on setting up a meeting the other day, and I was like, hey, why don't we just do a phone call? we could call each other. We don't need no video. I could be in my car. You could be wherever you are. Just call me. Just call me. And it's about, hey, we do have these other technologies. They do still exist. We still can use them, right? You know? We can talk without looking at each other. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Hi, my name is Amaya, and I have a grant consulting company, and I have worked with organizations that have got funded from all three of y'all. So thank you all for what you're doing. But I've been coming to more tech-involved conferences, and this morning, someone actually took notes. He said, capital should not be a solution to your problem. It should be an accelerator. And so if you think about, like in philanthropy, working with grants, most of the people, they need money to solve their problems. And so how can philanthropy help these organizations solve problems? Because I know I've also got the clients from all your organizations too. So what are some solutions maybe that organizations can have, like, I guess involving tech that, you can't give them money, but what are some solutions that nonprofits or even social impact organizations can do to solve the problems that they are trying to get to in that community?
How can foundations solve the nonprofit problems?
Yes, how can they help? Because they're not always
Beyond
giving
the dollar.
Beyond the dollars, yes. Yeah, thank you.
I think there are a couple of things that we do sometimes naturally, right? So like this idea that, first of all, transparency and information I think is super powerful. So when you get a no, it's not just a no, at least from us, it's not just a no, it's a no because of these reasons, so that you can be empowered to improve. And I think that's one way that we can help them be more prepared to kind of advance their work. And I would say the other space, so last night I was at Big Picture, El Centro Big Picture. And what I was able to do was just use my peer group to bring them in to help them learn more about the challenges in education. So I think this idea that you can be like a sponsor, connector, and amplifier of like what is actually happening out here by creating space for experience for our colleagues is another way that we can be really helpful.
I definitely think colleagues, right? When you have a large organization, and a no now doesn't mean a no always, and there's many instances where we figure out a way. If we can't fund an organization, is there a partner organization that we can recommend that you work with that is doing similar work in that community? Or do we have, at large organizations, we have people every day that want to use their skills, talents, abilities to help organizations in their community, whether it's building technology, helping serve on a finance committee, helping them figure out how to get things done so that they're ready for the larger grants or whatever they're applying for. So our people, we always say, are our biggest resource, and we love our employees to get involved.
No, I was just going to say what I'm hearing is beyond the technology, it's just the human interaction, right? Because at the end of the day, a funder is going to get, like, you can use technology to find all the grants in the world and apply to all the grants, but those funders are going to get 1 million applications. The ones that are going to get funded and the ones that are going to get the support and the ones that are going to say, hey, I know this other funder instead, is because you've actually developed a relationship and got to know that funder.
Awesome. Hello? All right, cool. One thing I could say, no to me in my book stands for next opportunity. Always keep that in mind. And
Okay.
yeah. and as well as
Use that. What's your name?
Willie Lopez.
The first time.
Right. And yeah, so actually let me introduce myself. So my name is Willie Lopez. I'm actually representing my non-funded program that I go to. It's called We Love Philly. I'm the last one standing. Everybody went home, but I'm representing, right? So me personally, myself, as a young individual, and you guys do philanthropy, and I feel as, that involves a lot of money. You as yourself, you work at a bank, and, people view as money, like she mentioned, they try to use it to find their solution instead of using it as an accelerator. But I want to understand, as a young individual who is a first generation in this country, I actually want to know, what resources do you advise as people who manage big money and, try to dedicate these resources to people who actually need it? What resources can a young individual like myself use to not only become financially responsible, but as well as manage their money and be responsible with it?
Let me say, I think, young man, you are on your way right now, okay? All right, and because what I have found in my lifetime, and and as I've talked to young people, is that being conscious of it is damn near the only thing you got to do, right? Because then you become naturally inclined to do things that will help you. So being conscious of it is critical, to know that, hey, you have resources, and it's, I always say we make decisions about grants. It could be, 3 zeros behind it, 4 zeros behind it, 5 zeros behind it, but it's all the same type of decision, right? And so one, resources that you think you can learn is like, how do you manage your money yourself? How do you do that? Making sure that you create your own budget, life plan, and everything of that nature, and focusing on that. I think also you got to be able to think about how, looking out in the world and seeing, those folks or those situations or those entities or organizations that you aspire to be, and learning about them and seeing what they do and how they do it. So much about success is about how you can learn from other people's mistakes. And so that's what I would do there. The other piece, and a little bit to the other room, the last time in the last session here was about mentors and, creating that and making sure that that's in place. And, Suleiman was very, very pointed about saying, hey, you got to have that person bring you into the room. I would add on to that is that you want that person to know you and to be able to describe you when you're not in the room, right? So that when you're not in the room, an opportunity comes up. Jim from X is saying, what's your name? Willie is a great guy. I know this guy, Willie. Let me get him in front of you when you're not in the room. And so the resources and the development of the relationships that you should do, you should have that in mind. I think that's it. I could go on and on, but I'm gonna give my friends here a little opportunity to say something.
I think you hit the nail on the head. But with that mentorship or sponsorship, I always tell people, if the person can't tell you what they're going to say about you, you don't want them saying anything about you, right? Like, so even if you're not there, what are you going to say about me? I agree. Oh, you're going to say that? Oh, okay, I'm good. Don't say that, right? But I think having conversations about money openly and not, I think it's something that is still very taboo. People don't want to talk about managing money, taxes. You have to talk to people that you trust and respect and get naked about it so that you can understand the processes that they use. I think you're way ahead of most because we're talking about it, right? Like, I think that's step one, but then creating a circle of people that can share with you their experiences.
I also want to say, kind of off topic, it is estate planning month. Get your estates and your wills together, have the conversation, where are the documents, so that generational wealth and that in-family fighting once you have passed is not an issue. I'm sorry. It's part of what you do. It's part of.
I think you brought up something that is important when you're talking about managing money and resources, and something that I have been able to learn just by watching how the trust resources are managed, right, is that there is a mindset and a clear set of strategies to gaining and maintaining wealth. And I will say that something that when I got to the, I was like, oh, this is
No, it's
interesting.
not.
This is interesting. This is a mindset shift for me, because where certain things that I was valuing, like how I treated my time, is an example of this. And I had a situation, everybody couldn't make it to the meeting, but one person was like, listen, I'm playing tennis. Like, I can't do it. And I was thinking, oh, wow, like this meeting is once a month, once a quarter. You can't miss tennis that one day? And the answer was no. And I was like, you know what? That's a mindset. That's not a rich or poor thing. That is, I value what I do with my time, right? And that's a great resource you have to manage money, right? Is how you're using your time. So that was a big lesson for me. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'm going to have to start saying no too, because I actually don't want to be doing this other stuff either. But it was just and here's the thing, they accept my no, because they value when they say it was a mindset shift. I just never even thought of doing that. And the second thing that I realized is every question is about how is this money making money? So we had I won't say who the organization is, but we had an organization who did not spend all the grant money. And my thinking was like, okay, well, what are we going to do about that? Because I try to avoid taking the money back to people. But anyway, that was not the first question that they asked. They asked, well, is it held in a interest-bearing account? I was like, oh, how am I supposed to know that? I don't know the answer to that, but very different path of thinking, right? Because their thinking is like, we gave the money, they didn't use it. Did they make money on it? Like, because if it's not in an interest-bearing account with them, they need to give it back to us, because it can be in an interest-bearing account with us. So that was a very different orientation about the function of money. And I think when you have had different challenges, poverty mindset, all the things that many of us have experienced, you don't even know that these are actual strategies used regularly to protect and maintain and grow money.
I am aggressively being told that time's up, even though I told her it wasn't. So I want to thank our panel for joining us today. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you to One Philadelphia for having this conversation. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend. Thank you.